So, a little bit late last week, reviews for Team Sonic Racing started pouring out like crazy by tons of game publishers, and there was one review in particular that was very critical of Team Sonic Racing, having played the game for at least a day now. Do I agree or disagree with this review? Let's discuss right now. Hello there beautiful human, my name is RidersDX and welcome to my channel, where today we're in the middle of Team Sonic Racing Week and I've got the second video of this week coming at you right now. And so before we get started, let me just plug in today's fan art. So this fan art comes from someone named Stick the Hedgehog. I think I shared their fan art at one point before, but they drew something new, so I'm showing it again. And this is Duckos doing the duck thing, and I'm loving it because it looks like Metal Duckos is doing the moonwalk. And funny enough, there are some other people that like did similar drawings. I guess Metal Duckos just seems like, you know, the next coming of Michael Jackson. It's pretty accurate, I would say. So thank you so much for this, I really appreciate it. Back to the topic at hand. So today I've got a bit of a different video compared to what I would usually do. So I spent all day yesterday playing Team Sonic Racing. I even got to play some of you all in online matches on the Switch version. If you are interested in racing against me and you have the Switch version, then make sure you go follow me on my Twitch. There's a link in my description box below. I'm going to be streaming the game again on Friday night, and then I'm probably gonna start streaming the game like regularly, like if not every week, then like maybe every other week, because it's a really fun game and I really want to get better at it. And so I'd be happy to keep racing against you all if that's something you would be interested in. But in the meantime, in today's video, there was a lot of reviews for Team Sonic Racing that came out like Friday last week, and a lot of them were for the most part very positive. But there was one review that got the attention of a lot of Sonic fans, and this is a review from a website named GamesRadar's that gave the game ultimately a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Of course, the review got a lot of flack from Sonic fans. You know, it's like all these other publishers are saying really positive things about this game. Why is this one publisher really like dragging this game down? To be honest though, 2.5 out of 5 stars, it may seem like a bit of a bad score, but in reality it's really not a terrible score. It's just like a mediocre score, and it'd be very interesting to kind of see like where their complaints came from and whether or not I agreed with them. And so after playing the game for a full day yesterday, I'm gonna go do bullet of GamesRadar's review and just kind of comment on whether or not I agree with what they said, if there's anything in the review that's actually like wrong, like not like an actual thing in the game. And so yeah, it's gonna be very fun. Might be spilling some good tea today, so alright, let's get into it. I wrote down all my notes here in this laptop, so let me just kind of take a look at what I've got.
At its core, Team Sonic Racing doesn't feel as fun as it could. Vehicles make blocky turns, drifting feels unresponsive, and the various karts don't pick up a ton of speed. No matter what elements work, the lack of quality driving makes everything built on top of it lackluster.
So this paragraph talks a little bit about the actual game mechanics of the game, you know, it not feeling very responsive or feeling very blocky or like kind of weird things like that. And so this is kind of my overall thought about the gameplay, and I'm definitely going to go more in depth in terms of what I think in my Team Sonic Racing review, which I'll release next week. But for the sake of it, I think that this gameplay feels fine for the most part. You know, if you play like All Stars Racing or Transformed, then the gameplay is going to feel very familiar to you, in that they take a lot of the same things that they did in those games and bring them over to here. It's almost like the same engine, you know, just obviously with a lot of modifications because of the team mechanics. I think the turning is fine. The reality is that it's not easy in this game. You know, it's not like Mario Kart where you can kind of just like casually pick it up and like get first place. You need to kind of play through the levels a good amount of times to get a sense of like when it is best to turn per se, and also knowing like how long you should turn, at what spot you should turn so you don't bump into a wall. You know, you kind of have to have a good idea of the track layouts to be able to do good in the track. You know, it's not like you can just jump into it and do good with it. And if that's not what you're looking for, then that's totally fine. You know, no one's forcing you to like master a racing game. It's just that with Team Sonic Racing, it's not really something that you can just casually get into. You have to have a good idea of what the stage layout is like, so that turning is not going to feel like blocky or like unresponsive. You know, you're just not doing it in the right way or not doing it at the right time. I really felt like I realized this as I kept playing through adventure mode, because when I played the stages for the first time in adventure mode, I was really bad at the game, and as I kept going through adventure mode, I started playing some of the same tracks over and over again, and I was able to kind of like predict when I should turn, predict when I should do a boost, predict when I should do this or that, and it felt a lot more smooth for me. you know, compared to when I was first playing it my first out. And so I think that's something you really need to take into account of. If you just spend like a few hours in this game, then you're definitely not going to have a good time. You really need to like practice a little bit to really get into the mechanics of the game.
The focus on team mechanics over individual performance is the main redeeming quality here. You can still lose if you finish first, and that makes coordination more important than anything else. Team elements include using your teammate's boost trail to slingshot yourself ahead of the pack, transferring items to your partners when you don't need them, and building up a meter to use the team ultimate move that's incredibly effective.
Time to go ultimate.
They're all exciting elements that make races feel like coordinated efforts rather than a ferocious free-for-all. But after taking a few spins around the track, I knew the team mechanics weren't particularly deep. Outside of sharing items and boosts, there isn't much you can do to work as a team. No racing formations, versatile items that benefit from having two teammates near each other, or bonuses for working together on a higher level. Combine that lack of depth with the rigid driving, and you've got a recipe for a boring kart racer.
So I absolutely agree that the team mechanics are one of the best parts of this game, you know. I'm even questioning if I like this game more than Transform right now. I'll make a full decision on that in my Team Sonic Racing review next week, but in the meantime, I'm just kind of struggling. Like, I actually really like these team mechanics. They add a lot to this game, a lot more than I thought they were going to add to the game. It basically changes your whole mindset of how you're racing in this game compared to the previous two All-Stars racing games. So that's a really cool thing. I really didn't realize that the gameplay changes in terms of the team mechanics would have that much of an impact on my overall experience. Although I'm not really sure what he means by like wanting something a little bit more deep with the team mechanics. Like, to be honest, I'm not really sure what else Sega or Sumo Digital could have done that wasn't already done in the game. Now, let's talk about some of the ideas that he laid out, because he did lay out a few suggestions about what are some things you could do to make the team mechanics a little bit more deep. He said like racing formations, and I'm not really sure what he means by that. If you all have any ideas about what he means by like racing formations, then let me know down in the comment section below. Maybe there's like a racing game that does racing formations or something like that, but I honestly have no idea what he means by that. He talked about being close to your teammate and being able to like get certain items because of it, or utilize certain items because of that, and that is an interesting idea. There are certain items in this game that you actually can only get by transferring items between you and your teammate. That might not be immediately obvious, but I read that somewhere and it makes sense that like there are certain items you can only get by transferring items between you and your teammate. And so that's a really cool feature. I don't know if that's what he meant in terms of like more things you could do with your teammate in terms of items, but I don't know. I honestly don't know how much that would really add to the game, you know? He also talked about getting certain bonuses for building up your team attacks or doing more team motions, and I think there is a certain bonus you can get in this game, and that bonus is that as you do more team coordinated like moves and stuff, you build up the team meter, and once you fill the team meter, of course you can do the team ultimate move. And so that is sort of the bonus in my eyes that you get by doing more team actions, because a team ultimate can like drastically change the positions of the tracks. You know, that's how competitive this game can actually get, is like if you have like team ultimates, it can totally change like the whole outcome of the race, and that's exciting and frustrating at the same time. Now here's what I think about him wanting more like depth in terms of team mechanics. I personally feel like that the team mechanics they added are just enough to add enough depth, but not too much to the point where it would completely take over the kart racing genre, because ultimately this is still a kart racer, or like a car racer, I guess. Some people are arguing that this is not actually a kart racer, but it plays like one, so I'm gonna call it a kart racer. But anyway, if you added that much more depth to it, you risk overcomplicating the system, and if you overcomplicate the system, then there's too much you need to think about when racing through these tracks, and it just wouldn't be as easy to get into. The game already has like a learning curve to it. I don't think adding more team mechanics is what this game really needed. I think being able to kind of master the team mechanics that are in front of you and utilizing them to the best of your abilities is enough, at least for this game. Maybe if they decide to make like a follow-up, and that's something they could think about, but I honestly think that this was like the right amount of the team mechanics that they implemented into this game without completely changing what they were doing in terms of being a kart racer.
It doesn't help that the tracks themselves are just an abundance of poorly rendered themes plastered over each other. Each course feels colourful in all the wrong ways, with far too much to look at and nothing that catches the eye. The set pieces that made Sunshine Airport, Toad Harbor and Mount Wario unique in Mario Kart 8 are missing here.
Now, I'm a little bit mixed on terms of this comment because on one hand, I really do love the tracks in Team Sonic Racing. I love the themes that are attributed to them. I mean, I'm not a big fan of them reusing tracks, but in terms of the actual themes, the aesthetics of the tracks, I am a big fan of them. I love how the casino levels look. I love how Whale Lagoon looks. I love how Final Fortress looks. I think they all look very solid. Although, I will say, I do kind of agree with him in terms that there's too much going on in the tracks. Maybe it's because I've only been playing this game for a day, but when I play these tracks, there's a lot going on in the tracks. You know, there's so many things kind of flying around at you. It's kind of hard to pinpoint one thing you see in the track and be like, oh, that looks cool, because there's so much going on. And plus, the gameplay itself is a little bit more complex compared to like Mario Kart, because you have the team mechanics to worry about. So you constantly have to be looking to see, oh, is someone requesting an item, or is someone offering me an item? You kind of have to constantly look at the top of the screen to make sure you're not missing that. And at the same time, you need to look at the track itself to make sure you know where you're going and that you're not gonna like crash into a wall. That's something I especially struggled with when I was playing online, because I had this other layer of like, oh, I need to make sure I'm talking while I'm like playing the game, and I need to make sure that like I'm saying hi to people in the chat at the same time. But like, that's obviously not something you would usually do in the game. But when I was playing by myself, for the most part, I really do love how the tracks came out. I think they look great, but I think there was a little bit too much added into them. I think they went for a lot of detail, which is great and usually a really good thing. But sometimes it would have been nice to have kind of more simplistic tracks where I can really like kind of just take in everything that's in there. And that's something that Mario Kart does really well, is that the tracks, they look great, they look gorgeous, but they're not overly complicated and cluttered with tons of things. So you can really get a good sense of what the track is and kind of just immerse yourself into it. Whereas with Team Sonic Racing, I just feel like there's so much going on like at all times that it's a little bit hard to do the same thing with this game.
Team Sonic Racing's campaign includes 7 chapters of races, as well as other types of modes like ring collection, target smashes, and elimination rounds, tied together by horribly boring cutscenes made up of static character art. If you're looking to handle the majority of this one alone, then the campaign will be your only option. Outside of time trials, local play, and online multiplayer, there isn't much else you can play through when you first start out.
So in summary, this person is talking about at this point that there's not a lot for like a single player to do beyond the adventure mode and the various modes in the exhibition mode. And while that is true, that's kind of the same case for like all kart racers, you know? And if we're gonna talk about Mario Kart, because this person is constantly talking about how great Mario Kart is, especially near the end of the review, then Mario Kart doesn't really have like any of these features that Team Sonic Racing has in terms of like a story mode or the specific types of missions that he's talking about, you know, the ring challenges, the target smashes, the elimination rounds. You know, like Mario Kart doesn't really have those modes. Mario Kart does have a battle mode, which Team Sonic Racing doesn't, so I guess that kind of equalizes them in terms of like different modes that they have. But all these things that he's asking for is not really stuff that would typically be in a kart racer. So unless he just like hates all kart racers, I really don't think this is like a fair argument to make towards Team Sonic Racing in particular, because the game is ultimately made to be a multiplayer game. You know, that's what racing games are for. They're for playing with your friends. I mean, at least Team Sonic Racing tried to add like a bit of an in-depth story mode to help single players kind of like get some fun out of the game, but I really don't think this is a necessary thing for a racing game. I think racing games are ultimately about the multiplayer experience, and that is where the focus should be. You know, racing games should not be expected to have like really robust and awesome single player campaigns, because that's not what these games are for. That's why Mario Kart doesn't have a story mode, because it's not important for this kind of game. It's not important. So my main gripe with this paragraph is like, he's talking about all these things that Team Sonic Racing doesn't, but these are things that like almost all kart racers don't have. So why is he holding these insanely high standards to Team Sonic Racing compared to other games? This is probably one of the points that I truly, really disagree with.
The variation in mission types was nice, but the inability to play them right away ruined a lot of my enjoyment. The standard races with the same teams, especially since you can't mix and match members of each squad, got stale fairly quickly, and I often didn't want to play through the Grand Prix at the end of each chapter.
So he basically says over here that you can't even like swap the teams or like swap your team members, which I at first was like, that's totally wrong, because I was just playing online mode yesterday and I had a team of like 2 silvers and Zavok. So you definitely can change team members. But then I decided to go into like the local play and see if like you could still do it locally and offline. And as far as I know, there actually isn't a way to change the team members when you're playing offline. I think the only way you could really do it is if you're playing with friends and they would select different characters. But if you're you're playing by yourself and you select, say, like the Chow, then your team members are automatically Amy and Big, which is like, why don't I have the right to like change the team members? Especially since you can already do it in a way, just not like 100% like direct. Like, I just think that would have been such an easy thing to implement into the game, is being able to select not only your character but your team members and even customize their cards too. I feel like that's just such a small thing that would have been like an extra special touch to this game for people that are playing offline, because not everyone's going to be playing online in this game, you know? Like, I went for the longest time without having like online modes in my games because I didn't want to pay for it. But now I have, so I am playing online, but like there's a lot of people out there buying this game that won't be able to play it online. And if you can't like even like change your team members, then that really adds a lot of like restriction to the game that really shouldn't be there. And the reviewer also mentioned the fact that you have to play like Grand Prix at the end of each chapter, and I hate to say it, but I absolutely agree with this point. You do have to play a Grand Prix at the end of each chapter, and I just think that like that was completely unnecessary. You're already playing a lot of these tracks before the Grand Prix, but like in single races, and it's not like these races are like different challenges or anything like that. You're basically racing to be first with your team, and so there really is no reason to have the Grand Prix at the end of each chapter. It really just is like padding, you know? It's basically just to make the story mode longer when it really doesn't have to. I understand if it's gonna be a short story mode because it's a racing game, and like I said before, racing games are not like praised for their single player campaigns. It's more for the multiplayer experience, so it's okay to have like a short story mode in this case. But for some reason they felt the need to add like a Grand Prix at the end of each chapter, then you're often playing tracks that you already played at that point like 3 or 4 times through adventure mode, so it just gets very repetitive and just feels like a waste of time, honestly.
The in-game currency you can use to buy car parts, bonus blocks and cosmetics didn't give me enough incentive to keep playing either. These unlocks, including different wheels, bumpers and other items for each car, were one of the positive elements of the entire game. The different wheels, car colours, styles and various other parts did make my kart feel unique. However, Sega shot themselves in the foot by limiting items to one character, rather than allowing any character any type of kart. A missed opportunity considering the wide range of kart designs among the character roster.
And so in this part of the review, he talks about like the customization parts and how he did like them, but he didn't really feel like there was an incentive to keep playing the game. He also didn't like that you couldn't use the parts for all the characters. I have to admit, that is a good point, you know? It would have been great to be able to use like the parts that I got for like Blaze's car and like everyone else's car, but I think the reason that Sega did this, or like Sumo Digital to be specific, did this is because each person riding their cart is riding a very specifically shaped cart to accommodate the size of the character. Like for example, Big has a very different cart compared to say Sonic, because they're two very differently sized characters. And we're not even talking about the Chow, which is basically 3 Chow inside like the incubator, and then Oma Nacho. I need to stop saying Oma Nacho. Oma Chow is on the outside kind of guiding them, and so not even taking that into account, that's probably why they limited the customizations to specific characters. But it would have been a nice thing to like have it so that you could use the parts in all characters, even if you had to like adjust it a little bit to make it fit the character's vehicle. I'm guessing they just didn't think that that was a worthwhile thing to do, and to be honest, I don't think that would have added much to the game, you know? Customizations is not really meant to be like one of the saving graces to make you want to keep playing this game. It's more so just something to like, you know, supplement the game and give you a little bit more freedom in terms of what you want to do. I will say that like compared to like Crash Team Racing, for example, it doesn't look like Team Sonic Racing's customization is as in-depth as I would have liked it to, but I am happy that it's there, and you can change the colors at least to like any color you want, and so pretty cool in my opinion. I don't think it's a game breaker if the customizations is not that in-depth, you know? That's not the point of the game. It is something that's nice to have on extra, but not having it is not really going to detract from the game.
Nothing I point out will make Team Sonic Racing a better game. The core of the driving experience just isn't where it needs to be. It joins the ranks of other racers like Diddy Kong Racing, Crash Team Racing and even Garfield Kart in trying to build off what Nintendo has perfected. Team Sonic Racing could be a fun experience if the core mechanics were tweaked enough to be tighter, fluid and far more arcadey. There are bits of polish that shine through every now and then, but the entire game feels like it was rushed. We give it 2.5 stars.
So this is the statement that got the internet like on fire. And if you're a Crash Team Racing fan, then you should be really mad at this statement too, because he basically dragged every kart racer that isn't Mario. And so this kind of just was like a good like reason why he doesn't seem to be very into this game. It just seems like he's looking at Mario Kart, and like any game that isn't exactly like Mario Kart, he just kind of looks at it as like a lesser version of it, which is fair. You know, if you really like Mario Kart, then good for you. If that's what you prefer, then that's fine. Just keep playing Mario Kart. There's millions of players that are playing that every single day online. You know, it's great. But Team Sonic Racing is trying to do something a little bit different. The team mechanics, and it's not as easy to get into. It's definitely not a casual kart racer. But he's really kind of like critiquing all these little things about the gameplay in particular as if it was bad, when in reality it's just something that has a learning curve, and you really need to like hone in your skills to be able to really understand how to play the game. Because a lot of complaints that he has in terms of like blocky turning and all that, I've been looking at various gameplay videos of lots of people that have been playing this game yesterday, and you don't see that at all. You know, they turn perfectly, they use the drift to the maximum benefit, and I even saw this one video where the person was basically like boosting throughout the entire track. So it proves that there is a decent amount of speed in this game. You just need to know how to earn it, and that is a great principle about Sonic games in general, is that best Sonic games, at least in my honest opinion, are the ones where you need to like earn your speed. And that's why the adventure games were good in my opinion, the classic games were really good in my opinion. You know, you couldn't just like go fast. You know, you had to like have a good idea of the stage layout, you had to have a good grip on the controls, you had to be good at the game to get speed as your reward. And that's one of the things that made Sonic so appealing in the first place. So to me, it just kind of seemed like he looked at like how difficult the game was and kind of just assumed like, oh, it's difficult because it's bad, not because I can't like get better at this game. You know, as someone who's really bad at video games, especially if you watched yesterday's stream, because whew, I was really bad at this game, I know in my head that it's not because the game is bad, but it's because I need to get better at the game. And that's something that should be admired in my opinion, and not something that should be criticized. And that's basically everything he talked about in the review. Everything else in that was kind of like retreading on the same points over and over again, so that's probably where I'm gonna end it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So he actually did make a lot of good points that I agreed with. When I read this review before I got the game, I was a little bit annoyed because I felt like he wasn't very specific in a lot of the claims that he was making. And so it was kind of great to get to play the game myself and just like really pinpoint what he's talking about and talk a little bit more specifically with y'all about some of the things that he comments on. But I felt like from his review, he critiqued the game a lot, but he was not very specific in terms of like what really he disliked about it, especially with the gameplay mechanics. You know, you say the game is like blocky or unresponsive, but like if you can give me some specific examples of why it's blocky or unresponsive, that would have been really great. Or some specific features in this game that you liked or didn't like. You know, I just felt like the review itself wasn't very specific, so I'm glad I was able to kind of sit down and like look through it, like analyzing it and really talking about the specific things in this game that you can do and what he could or could not be talking about. But I want to know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you agree with this review, or do you disagree with it? Are there things you liked about it? Are there things you don't like about it? And yeah, just let me know your thoughts, and also just let me know what you think about this game in general. It's been out for at least a day now, so it'd be really great to kind of get a good sense of like what people are thinking about this game. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Okay everyone, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel below if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future, follow me on Twitter or Twitch, and join my Discord server, Spongy Garden. And this is Riders. I'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's video. Riding out. Bye-bye. Shout out to my Patreon supporters, Reese Gaming and Barry the Strawberry. If you would like to become a patron, then please take a look at the link in the description box below and take a look at what perks you could get. Thank you so much.